Hi SmartPak fans, SmartPaker Sarah here from the marketing team, and I'm here with our staff veterinarian and medical director, Dr. Lydia Gray, who just celebrated her 10-year anniversary with SmartPak.
I did.
But maybe even more exciting than that, we're doing our first Ask the Vet video series.
Exciting.
We're really excited for the first video in this series to be going out today. And we're tackling winter horse health questions. And all the questions that we're going to go over today and many, many others were submitted by you guys, our fabulous fan base. And then they were voted on by you guys as well. So we're answering the most popular questions, the ones that fans are most curious about. And we're really excited to get started. So I'm going to jump in with question 1, which is from Tammy from Missouri.
Oh, here we go.
And she is wondering, generally, how do you blanket correctly in the winter months, and thinking about switching between light, medium, heavyweight? How do you make those choices?
So I'm going to rephrase the question.
Okay.
Because when I think about blanketing, the first question that comes to my mind is, do I even need to blanket? And so the things I think about then are, where do you live? So, geography matters. Is your horse clipped, or does he have a full coat? Is your horse healthy? Because if it's like an older horse, or a horse whose body condition score is low, or is thin or unhealthy for any reason, then maybe a blanket is a really good idea. Precipitation matters. If it's raining or it's windy, does the horse have access to shelter? So once I have those questions resolved, then I think about which blanket is right. And again, that depends on where you live. So I know people that live in, Texas, Florida, California, where I wouldn't even dream of putting a blanket on my horse. And once it's below 70, they've got to, put something on. And then people who live in Minnesota says, well, if it doesn't get below 0, I don't even bother. So it kind of depends on what you and your horse are acclimated to. And my rule of thumb is, and I think you know this, is you blanket versus the high temperature of the day, not the low, because horses are pretty good at fending off cold weather as long as they're not wet, but they have to sweat and they have to dissipate heat, and they can't do that as well with clothes on. So I think of that, and I think that once you put a blanket on for the season, you kind of got to leave it on, because you're pressing that hair down, and then that fluff that they naturally have can't work for them. That said, you can't just put a blanket on and leave it on the whole winter. You got to take it off and make sure the horse's body condition score is fine and his skin is not having rain rot or something. So there's lots of things to think about. It sounded like an easy question when we got voted on. Maybe that's why it was the #1 question, but there's lots of factors. And so I'm sorry I can't give a simple this temperature and this temperature and this temperature. It's just not that simple, but hopefully that was a little bit to think about and not overwhelming.
I think it's great. I think it's important for people to know that there are a lot of factors that go into it. And if you guys at home want a little bit of help with combining and evaluating those factors, you can always check out the SmartPak blanketing app. It's a great one to help you kind of think through those things. It asks you about body condition, it asks you about the age of the horse, and that's because you helped us make it.
And you did too.
I know, and that's why we love it so much. But it works in all those factors and really helps you understand what kind of decisions you could be making for your horse, and so it helps you think through all those questions.
Right.
Okay, you ready for number 2?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, this is Christy from California. And she mentioned that she rode in a quarter sheet for the first time this winter today, and where she lives, usually 40 to 50 degrees. She usually warms up with it on and then takes it off, but she's wondering if she should keep it on for the entire ride sometimes.
Okay.
And she did mention her horse has a full body.
Oh, that's helpful. So as you're reading that, the first thing I'm thinking is, I wish it was 40 to 50 degrees when I ride. That would be a heat wave. But so the short answer is no, or no. I think maybe yes.
Should she keep it on for the full ride?
No, the answer is no. Okay, because if you think about a quarter sheet as your helpful in your warm up, and your warm up is 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, and then when the horse is warmed up, take the quarter sheet off, work, do whatever. And then when your horse is cooled down again and the temperature has gone back to normal and the heart rate and the breathing and all that, put the quarter sheet back on. so the horse is clipped.
Yep,
so
full body clip.
probably wearing a blanket.
You would hope.
Yeah, and the other things that I would want to know are, where does this horse live? Is he in a stall or is he turned out? And what kind of work she's doing. So it matters if you're just walking or you're doing a really hard workout. But basically, I would use my quarter sheet. I would stick with the warm-up philosophy.
Yeah.
The quarter sheet helps your horse get warm while you're warming up.
And you can kind of think of it the same way as people feel. Like if you get to the barn in the morning, it's really cold, you have a big jacket on, you start mucking stalls.
That's right.
By that third stall, you want that jacket gone.
And so does your horse.
And then as soon as you're done, pretty cold, you want it back.
That's right.
And so while you're working, don't need the extra layer.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Question
We're making a
3.
lot of sense here.
I know.
Okay.
We're working through. Question 3. Chris from New Hampshire wonders, she or he, I don't know, started fully leasing an 11-year-old paint this spring. For the first 10 minutes or so of warming up, he coughs and sneezes constantly. I had a pony like this. And then he's fine. And if they stop and walk around for a bit and then start working again, coughing and sneezing right back again. So the owner says he's been tested for lots of things, including allergies, and they've all come back with nothing. What do you think?
You had a pony like this. I, right now, have a horse like this. So
Newman.
I know. For the first it was 1 or 2 coughs for like a month. And then it was 3 or 4 coughs for a couple of months. And then it was half the year and a lot of coughing. And it was getting to the point where I was not able to, do the work.
That's distracting, if nothing else.
And it didn't feel good to him either, I'm sure. So what I did was I found a board-certified veterinary specialist, internal medicine. And she came to the farm. You can take your horse to a university. And
so you're a vet and you don't treat your horse exclusively?
Oh, because she did some tests that I have not been trained to do.
Okay.
Because she's a specialist. Yeah.
Very cool.
In respiratory medicine. And she was able to do this thing called a bronchoalveolar lavage. Wow. That's a mouthful, so we say BAL.
Okay.
And
lavage means wash.
Yeah, so you flush liquid into the horse's respiratory system. So you see the problem there.
Yeah.
And then you get it back out and you send it to a lab and they look at it under the microscope and they count and type the cells and diagnose the problem. Now what my horse has, and I suspect this horse has, is inflammatory airway disease.
Oh.
And that is a precursor probably to HEAVS, or recurrent airway obstruction.
So how are you supporting Newman?
Well, so he gets snuggle puffed every day. Well, now it's
that sounds like a treat.
It is. Now it's every 3rd day, but it actually started twice a day. So I use
it seems like it's working.
It's working great.
Okay.
But so the snuggle puff is his inhaler with corticosteroids and bronchodilators.
And horse inhaler, not like a people inhaler.
Well, you buy the little people inhaler.
Okay.
But then you have to buy
one.
Yeah, same medication. But then you have to buy a spacer. And the spacer I use fits over one nostril. And then you put the inhaler in this device and you puff. And he gets 8 puffs every 3 days. Wow. And you were joking about treating, but it was right, because when we trained him to allow snuggle puffing, and I call it snuggle puffing because I hold him and I puff, we puff and treat and puff and treat and puff and treat. And now it's puff, puff, treat, and then puff, 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 treat. So we've backed off the treats heavily because he got big. So
what are Newman's favorite treats?
Well, he can't have sugar, so he likes the Hilton herb balls.
Nice.
But anything
good one.
without sugar.
Cody likes those too.
Yeah,
and he's allowed to have sugar, and he still likes them.
Yeah,
so.
they have rosemary and thyme and maybe oregano, and I just call him Mommy's roast chicken. He smells so good when he's done.
He does love it. That's awesome. All right, question 4. Samantha from Maryland. Can horses develop immunities to supplements if fed the same thing for many years? She's wondering if her horse's joint supplement's going to become less effective over time, requiring her to upgrade or maybe switch supplements. The horse is only 6, so it's going to be a long time before she needs to officially switch to a senior supplement. So I guess, is that something that can happen?
I get that question more than you'd think. And you'd think I'd have a good answer by now.
I mean, that's why it got upvoted. Right. We see that with the fans.
Yeah. My response to that is, horses don't develop immunities. If you think about, do you develop an immunity to food? to water. No, you still
Keeps
need your
working.
nutrients.
Yeah.
They keep working. So that is also true for supplement ingredients. That said, there are occasions when you might want to upgrade to something stronger. If your horse is diagnosed with a certain medical condition, or you're doing harder work, there is a seasonal component to supplements. So if a lot of horses show or train or whatever in the summer months, and then they're backed off a little bit in the winter, you can also back off their support. But as they begin to travel and show and do all that, then maybe they need to go back to a higher level of support. So I kind of think of it more that way, like what is my horse doing and what am I trying to support? What does he need? Versus developing immunity or upgrading stronger. That's not really a concern. The concern is my horse on the right program for what he needs right now?
Right. And then if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Last but not least, question 5.
Okay.
Ashley from New Jersey. We're getting good, representation
All
across
over
the country. I like
yes,
it.
Yes.
Ashley's wondering, she has a 5-year-old horse that has slight arthritis on the bottom of her knee. The arthritis shows up in the wintertime the most. What supplement do you recommend for arthritis pain?
That horse is how old? 5?
Yeah.
That's kind of young to be experiencing discomfort.
Do you think it's fair to assume thoroughbred?
arthritis.
Raced young, something like that?
Maybe.
A lot
And
of
I'm also
activity.
assuming that she has a diagnosis. We're making a lot of assumptions here. I'm assuming that she's working closely with a veterinarian. And so the vet is going to come up with a plan, a treatment plan, that says this prescription medication and this, and maybe this supplement. And so for this horse, certainly a supplement with all the Mother Nature big 3 ingredients, glucosamine, chondroitin sulfate, HA, but maybe some additional components that do help manage discomfort, because it sounds like this horse is not comfortable.
Particularly in the wintertime.
Yeah. So things like, I'm thinking devil's claw, yucca, boswellia, maybe curcumin. Because she specifically mentions winter, I would advise this person to make sure the warm-ups, and perhaps a quarter sheet, are quite long and slow and lengthy. Take your time. Don't be in a rush to get on and get to the work, whether it's jumping or flying changes or reining, sliding stops or whatever. Take your time warming up, especially in the winter, but for this horse year-round. And so I think between whatever her vet says to do and then the right supplement and a really thoughtful exercise program, and of course, good turnout and good shoeing and good footing, I think this horse can be more comfortable.
That's fantastic. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Healthy horses, happy riders.
That's right.
That's why we're here. Well, that's why we took your questions. Thank you guys so much for the great suggestions and for voting and being a part of the process. We're going to keep this going, so stick with us on Facebook and our blog, and you'll see more calls for questions on YouTube as well. Don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll always get the latest Ask the Vet video and all the other fun stuff we do. And we welcome your feedback. We thank you for watching, and we hope you have a great ride.